Well, hello everyone, and good evening.
Good
I
evening.
hope, I hope everybody's okay. Let us know if you're there in the chat by saying hello. But today, I am so excited that we have got the man back, Brian Hoggart himself.
We have.
Um, I know you're excited, Dan, as well. So,
Love it. Absolutely brilliant. Really looking forward to this one. And I've been away for a while, guys. So hello, everybody. If you weren't on last night, I did make my long-awaited comeback last night. Probably much to your disagreement with it. But yeah, I had to come back. Uh, but yes, good evening, everybody. As Bibb says, we've got the wonderful Mr. Brian Hoggard on tonight. I don't know if you were here before when we spoke to him. He's a veritable feast of knowledge. He's an absolute dream to speak to because he's so interesting, and he imparts some of that information to us, and we can learn from it, which is always a good thing. We need to learn, and that's the best way to do it. So, how are you, Viv?
I'm fine. How are you, Brian? I'm more interested in Brian.
I am, yeah.
Are you still there, Brian?
Right. I will add here, Brian has had he's had problems all evening or this evening with his internet connection to us. Not sure what's going on. He did fix it a moment ago, but he did freeze, and we could still hear him, so we thought we'd go ahead with that. But it seems like he's not there at the moment. Hello, are you there, Brian? No, he's frozen. I think he's. I don't know where he's gone. But he's there somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, he'll be back.
He'll be back. He'll be back. Oh, he's got. Did you take him off, or did he took himself off, wasn't he?
I took him off.
Fair enough. Fair
I'm
enough.
gonna send him at the link again. Bear with me.
Hiya, Jamie. Hiya, Eric. Hiya, Eric. Hiya, Paul. Hiya, Laura.
Right, I'm back. Oh, there he is.
Is he back?
Brian, can you hear us?
I think he's frozen again. No. Well, anyway, Mr. Hoggard was a veritable feast of information when we had him here before. He's the chap who goes around the old buildings and he looks for objects that are found in old buildings. And one of the objects that he was speaking to us about before was horses' skulls, which we found very intriguing and very interesting. And I'm not going to say too much on it because obviously we want the professional to talk about it. You don't want to listen to me ratting on about something I'm not sure about. But he will be back shortly.
Hi, Laura. Hi,
Hiya,
everyone.
Rita.
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
Well, let me talk about this book, right? So, Brian has written a book, and it is a wealth of knowledge. The book is called Magical House Protection, and it's about the archaeology of counter witchcraft. Now, you're going to think, oh, it's all about witchy poo stuff and all
No,
this.
it's not, is it?
It's not. It's a very interesting read, and it also delves into some of British history. So you can find this book for sale on his website, which is a funny It's called Antrobus, is it, Dan? Can you
Yes,
remember?
which I believe is the Latin. Isn't it Latin or something for horse skull or horse head?
Something like that.
Hiya, Brian.
But yeah, no, I do recommend this book, especially not just ghost hunters. If you're interested in history, if you visit a lot of ancient churches and you walk around these churches and you're looking at certain features. For example, let's talk about witch marks.
I mean, that's a bona fide piece of educational equipment you got in your hand there, isn't it? That's not one of these woo-woo books.
So, witch marks, I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but I've looked at marks and think, oh, yeah, that's a witch mark.
All the
When
time.
actually it's not.
No.
It's not what you think it is.
No.
I don't want to say too much because when Brian comes back on, we can ask him about it.
Well, let's divert. We try and talk about something else for a minute until Brian becomes...
Yes.
Because you don't want to steal the man's thunder, I guess, as it were.
No.
And you don't want to listen to me banging on about something I'm not sure about because I get the wrong end of the stick, so God knows what he'll end up with when it gets to you. if I try to talk about it. But yeah, we need to listen to him because you think he's the best. He's the authority.
Yeah. Hi, Bri.
Hi, Bri. Hope you're doing well, buddy.
Guys, did you know that the Simply Spooky Network has been nominated for an award? So, can I ask, please, can you, there's links up on the page. If you could go on there and vote for us, that would be great. I think if the show hosts won something, I think they would all be made up, wouldn't they? You know, I didn't even know we were being nominated. This is completely sort of new to me.
If it was a nomination for the most foul-mouthed, disgusting channel out there, it would be us. We'd win that hands down. I'm sure we would.
Well, Lois would anyway.
Lois would, yeah.
She's not here to defend herself. We can say what we want. But
oh, that's good. It's always nice to be nominated.
Brian's just messaged me. Bear with me. Oh, he's had to restart the computer, so he'll get
fair
there.
enough. He should be hopefully on soon.
Just bear with.
He's in the ether somewhere at the moment, in the digital world, floating around above us all, waiting to make contact.
Yeah.
Like great Aunt Rita.
Aunt Rita?
Great Aunt Rita.
She's got to do with it.
She's floating around the ether. She's been dead for 80 years.
Oh, dear. And if anyone has got a great aunt called Rita, there's a Rita Thompson in the chat, so be careful what you say. Yes.
Well, there. Oh, do you know what? I'm psychic. I've just given you what's called a reading.
Are you trying to kid?
Shit reading.
Oh, dear. You're terrible, Dad.
Actually, my readings do work because you take everything I say and then turn it around and change it and put the opposite, and then you've got somewhere near where you should be going.
While we're waiting, I was going to share this out a bit more as well.
Oh, Jamie says that his grandma's called Rita. There you go, Jamie. There you go. I'm back one day and I've caused all these difficulties with the technology.
I know, when you were gone, we had so many people tuning in to watch us.
It's my electric personality. It upsets the airwaves.
You trying to kid?
I've got to tell myself. Nobody else will.
Oh, dear. Did you have a good birthday, Dan?
I did indeed. Thank you very much. I did indeed. It was very nice. It was very quiet, very relaxed, and just chilled. The only drawback was the kids were off.
Poor kids.
If they'd been at school, it would have been perfect.
You're terrible, you are.
No, it was great. It was really nice having them at home, to be honest.
Annette, you tell him, Nettie. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Trisha. Hope you're well.
Hope you're doing okay down in deepest, darkest Wales. We're going to Wales tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I always like going to Wales. I like Wales. Nice country.
Yeah. Yes. I don't think you saw Rita under there. Well, we'll ask Brian, because I'm sure that he may have visited a few crypts in his time. Because,
he probably has.
Yeah. I know that he does a lot with churches and stuff like that as well. And he has some really, really good information.
And get some good questions going, guys, because if he comes on, hopefully, I'm sure he will, then we'll have some stuff to ask him.
You know, you can ask him about cats buried in walls, shoes.
Yeah, all of that type of thing he's dealt with, isn't he?
Hexes. He's come across like curses written backwards and things like that. Witch bottles. The witch bottle thing is really interesting. Yeah,
it was interesting. Yeah. All of that sort of, it shows you the mindset, doesn't it, of the medieval period? I think that they would be set by anything foul or anything that was dodgy was automatically screened as a witch.
Yeah, it's some interesting. I'm reading this from his book. So this is he's talking about the City of London and Greater London. At Queen Elizabeth's hunting lodge, Epping Forest, there is a daisy wheel carved into wood next to the fireplace, according to correspondence reported in November in 2009.
Wow.
Now, do people know what daisy wheels are?
No,
What
they
do they
don't.
mean?
No, they don't.
What do they mean?
And I must
So that
confess,
was,
until his book, I didn't even realise they were called daisy wheels.
didn't you?
No, I just thought they were witch marks. I never really considered them. Oh, there's Brian.
There is.
So sorry about that.
Ah, you're fine.
That's all right,
You're
Brian.
fine.
We think we've got away with it. We don't think they noticed.
Oh, I don't know what occurred, but it seemed like my browser needed to update in some way. Everything just froze, and then when I restarted it all, you know how it goes sometimes. But I was only on a video call about 20 minutes before, so I don't understand why the glitch.
It's
modern
because
world.
they don't want us talking about what we was just talking
That's
about.
true.
What I read from your
Yeah,
book
that's
about
true.
the daisy wheels. It's like they don't want us. See?
Oh.
Mention
And then
the
you lot
daisy
wonder
wheel.
why I'm a Luddite. So next time anybody wants to come out with me and smash up some newfangled equipment, give us a shout. Just send me a message over the internet.
Brian, we've lost you again. I don't know if you can hear us. Oh, he's gone again.
He's gone again. It might just be one of those evenings, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. So we hope you enjoyed the evening with Brian. We try and get him on again one day.
And part of the reasons why I want to go spelunking.
I thought you said spunk.
Sam, behave yourself.
Knocking one out round the back of a castle.
That's terrible. I'll just quickly breeze past that. They must have been terrified to put them kind of things in walls, yeah. I think so.
Think of the poor animals.
Don't they correspond with the plague?
They may well do. I'm not that up on them, to be honest, Brian. Everything I thought I knew about them after speaking with Brian here, Mr. Hoggard, completely changed my tack on them. That's probably me, Eric.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Robert.
Oh, Rab. You've got to say it in Scottish. It's Rab.
All right there, Rob. How you doing?
All right there, Rab. Are you bogging tonight? That's my new Scottish word, bogging.
All right there, Rob. Oh, Chantal! Woo, woo.
Chantal's in the house. She's in the house.
Room. Hi, Chantal. Yes, thank you, Chantal.
Chantal's
there you
joining
go.
us
The man
from
himself.
South Africa, Brian.
Really, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Is it? I'm hoping. I've got my fingers crossed. Got my toes crossed.
Everything crossed.
We should be fine.
We should refer to that. We're going to refer to that object as the DW because I think when we mention the DW, things go wrong.
That's true.
Oh.
That's true. So, certainly. So we're just talking about, or referring to your book there a moment ago, or rather Viv was, Brian. And somebody asked, because they weren't quite what I thought they were, the daisy wheels. Could you give them an idea on what they are?
You mentioned the word.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I did, didn't I?
They're good, though. They should
Big W.
be warding off evil influence, to be honest with you, I hope. Oh, I'm seeing a flicker.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
That's because you mentioned the word.
I know.
What on earth? Anyway, I'll keep... Daisy. Oh,
God. Don't mention the word.
Here we go.
Can you still hear me or not?
Yeah.
Can
Still hear you.
I think I'm going to have to exit and plug back in again. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, it's just I don't remember this at all.
Oh, you're more or less you're gurgling now, Brian. It's yeah, I think that's gone, isn't it? More or less.
Okay.
Don't.
I'm going to try.
Okay. All right then, Brian. That's because you mentioned
I
the
know.
word. You got to call it a DW. A
It's like
DW is
interviewing
not
a Dalek at the end.
It's not Dan Winter. A DW is a
Daisy wheel.
It is really, really Interesting. Like they found some M marks and some W marks at Kew Gardens. Did you know that, Dan?
They're everywhere, aren't they? A friend of mine
They're
had a house. I've told you about the house.
everywhere.
Used to investigate regularly, and that had witch marks. Or what I thought were witch marks, but were clearly daisy marks.
Yeah.
On the actual building itself, and it also had what they called witch sticks up the chimney.
Wow.
But unfortunately, his house was smack bang in the middle of where the witch finder general Hopkins used to do, and he even executed a few women from that village. And his house was called the Witch House. Don't know why.
Oh.
But the problem was that when somebody done some work on the chimney, whoever done the work had stole the witch sticks.
Oh no.
And the witch bottle that was under the hearth, that had been taken as well.
But why would you want to steal those sort of things, though? I mean,
Money. You know what people are like.
It's just.
I wouldn't thieve anyway, but I particularly wouldn't thieve things like that.
No. I mean, like these mummified cats as well that they're finding. I know that they found a few in Cambridgeshire. One not far from me that they found, and they put it in a display, an actual one they found, not someone reported to have found it, that it actually was found in the building.
Oh, you froze there, Viv. Or I did.
I don't know what's happening. Yeah, I can see where you can hear me.
Yeah. Can you see me?
Yeah.
What a bonus for you.
So yeah, the mummified cat thing, excuse me, I find that absolutely fascinating.
There's one in York, isn't there? The one in the town hall in York, up in the rafters.
But some of them are not what people think they are. Some of them are pure accidents where the cat's got stuck. And some of them are there for other reasons. But I keep threatening John, you misbehave. You're going in the chimney. I couldn't do that to him.
I used to live with a girl years ago. Passed away now, bless her. But I lived with her, and we had these cats. We had these 3 cats, and we had one who was a little ginger cat. He was an arse, but he was cute as hell. And he was only a baby. And we'd rescued the mum and 3 kittens, and we brought them home. And her mum had 2 of them, and then we had one of the kittens with the mum. Anyway, we were having the house done up, and we'd spent. It must have been, I think at the time, about 16 to 1,800 quid on the new stairwell. Wow. So anyway, we got back and we were thinking, where's he gone? Can't find the cat anywhere. But meow, 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 meow. What happened was, when they put the stairwell up, it got in. They had to rip the whole bloody thing back out. And he's come out like, looked at me like, what do you think
That's terrible. How much did that cost in the end to put right?
Cost me another 600 quid. Curiosity, isn't it? But that's what you're saying. Cats getting trapped behind things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
People used to put a shoe under the floor. Yeah.
They did. Yeah, they did.
Do you know what, Eric? Get this book. Seriously.
Honestly, Eric, it's a great book.
I'll try and find the link, and seriously, if you can get this book, it's a font of knowledge. Seriously,
I think Brian's back.
He's back.
Should we try 3rd time lucky?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Don't mention that thing. Just call it a DW. That was my fault,
unfortunately. Yeah.
Call it a DW. I think it's cursed.
I've never had so many technological problems on a podcast in my life before. I don't know if this is
I blame Dan.
Why not? Everybody else does.
Yeah.
I'll take it on the nose.
Yeah. Shall I launch into a discussion on the DW thingies that we were
in?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So they are my favourite apotropaic symbol, to be honest with you. That apotropaic means to turn away, which is the term that people have come to use for averting evil or for diverting evil. And the DW is essentially a circle, And if you imagine drawing a circle with a compass, and then you place the point of the compass on the edge of the circle and draw another circle of equal diameter.
Yeah.
Where those two cross together, put the point of the compass there and draw another one until you've gone all the way around the original circle.
Right.
And that will have given you 7 circles, and it will leave you a lovely 6-petaled design, which we refer to as the DW. Now, that symbol has been in use for at least since at least 1600 BC. Some of the first examples were found in ancient Egypt, but actually there are some Neolithic symbols on some of the chambered tombs in Ireland, for example. Some of the earliest depictions of the sun seem to be drawn in a very similar way. It could be argued that there's a relationship between them, especially when you consider that in Romania today, for example, where it's still a living tradition of using this symbol on gateposts and things like that, they very much regard it as an ancient solar symbol. And also in the early gravestones in the USA, for example, when the white settlers first invaded essentially in the land of the indigenous people and started putting their own gravestones there, they tended to put them on those as well, which they also referred to as a solar symbol. In Germany, they regard it as a solar symbol. It seems to be that everywhere regards it as a solar symbol. In our country, in England, we seem to have forgotten that that's what it was. So we were kind of perplexed a little bit by it. So when people first started finding the daisy wheel scratched onto surfaces as graffiti, and also included it into like tracery designs and Gothic architecture, people tried to find other explanations for it. They weren't really sure what it meant.
Yeah.
And so, so some people have suggested that maybe they're traps for demons and things like that. But actually, when you look around the world at what other people believe about this symbol, it seems to be that collectively the memory is that it's an ancient solar symbol. And certainly, if there is a link between those 1600 BC ancient Egypt ones and some of the early 3200 BC ones we find in some of these sort of Neolithic chamber tombs and things, then yeah, it does seem to be a really, really ancient solar symbol. And when you find it scratched onto surfaces in medieval buildings, and there's even examples that I've been sent of people scratching it onto 1920s brick terraced houses in Cambridgeshire, right? So it's really, really been used right up until the most recent era. Yeah. And it seems to be that you've got this idea that light keeps darkness away, essentially, and that's why people use it to protect places. It's a very cool symbol. And in fact, sometimes you get just circles as well. And it's either somebody who's incredibly inept at making a DW and can only do a circle, or that the circle itself is actually also the most ancient kind of depiction of the sun, isn't it?
Do you think, Brian, that you mentioned ancient Egypt? Dan and I briefly touched on the mummified cat thing. Do you think that the mummified cat being found in these walls that we've heard about go back as far as that as well? Because the ancient Egyptians loved their cats, didn't they? And saw them as a deity.
They kind of worshipped them really as the goddess Basht. But they had a different point of view about them, but coming from a similar kind of place in terms of the relationship that humans have with cats, because the earliest ones that we tend to find as dried cats in walls and under floors tends to be from about the 14th century.
Right. Okay.
Now that doesn't mean that there aren't earlier ones, but obviously the ones that we find in Western Europe tend to be in colder, wetter climates, and they're more likely to rot away or disintegrate or whatever. But also, we didn't wrap them up. Although people refer to them as mummified cats sometimes, they haven't actually gone through a process of mummification. What they've done is dried out in a cavity, in a very slow and stable way. And so it's a different practice, different tradition, but I think it's born out of the way humans respond to cats, in that they are semi-nocturnal. They've got this kind of mysterious behavior. They seem to be able to sense things that we can't. They've got this incredible heightened senses, yet they're also very good at catching vermin, and they're friendly to us. And I think what's going on there is that we want to try and capture some of that essence of them as a kind of guardian spirit attached to the house.
Right.
Right.
So that because they're semi-nocturnal, they can be alert while you sleep. And that seems to be part of the theme of protection of houses. Is like, for example, with the horse skulls, they also, although they don't do it all the time, they can choose to sleep standing up with their eyes open, and so it makes them kind of vigilant when, like, hyper vigilant. So when we're asleep, they can be awake, helping us out. There seems to be a bit of a theme going on with some of these protection methods, but certainly cats, they are kind of spooky, aren't they? And also, in a good way. And also, in the 17th century in particular, obviously this tradition, as I've said, it goes on from the 14th century. But, in the 17th century, it became a popular idea in Britain in particular for the witch to have a familiar, which might also be a cat. And so, in a way, you're fighting fire with fire, aren't you? By having your own guardian cat, which might be able to protect you from the witch's familiar, which, wasn't always... Not all witches are bad, of course. Do you know what I mean? But people were reading these tales of evil witchcraft and people being in league with the devil and having the witches familiar. So, yeah.
So the thing with the sorry, Brian, go on.
I was just going to say, funnily enough, the idea of the witches familiar wasn't really that common in the continent at all. It was a really strongly quite British thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So I was going to say the thing with the DW. There's a lot of talk now, isn't there, about everything in the universe and the universe being basically built on maths, and we're looking at for that they're looking at sacred geometry, aren't they? So would there be any relationship between the DW and sacred geometry at all?
Yeah, well, a lot of people think so. If that's your interest area, then I would certainly I would certainly back it. The symbol's been around for a very, very long time, and it deserves being investigated from every angle, I would say. But there are people who've written books about the DW, and in the New Age fraternity, the kind of more sort of modern New Age theory kind of thing, rather than looking back specifically at witchcraft. In the New Age fraternity, they refer to it as the flower of life. And so if you were to Google the flower of life, you'll find thousands and thousands of entries on daisy wheels, DWs, whatever. I think
I think you covered it. We've got away with it.
Got over that hump. But yeah, so it's very much referred to as the flower of life in the New Age fraternity. In America in particular, this is a really popular topic. People wearing T-shirts and necklaces with the design on, but all coming at it from the sort of New Age healing kind of and universal symbol of power kind of angle. Yeah, whereas I come at it from the why is it scratched onto this surface? What are the other examples? Etc. I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle, but it's definitely been embraced by a whole community of people as a proper sort of almost like the DNA of the universe kind of symbol.
Yeah, I think a lot of neo-paganism has sort of stuck itself onto the end of it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's very popular, very popular.
Bryce says he's seen it carved around a Templar pentagram.
Yeah, pentagrams. It depends in what context you're talking about. I'm sure you have. I'm not disputing that you've seen it.
Yeah.
But the question is, where was it? Was it an ancient carving, or was it more recent? And the thing as well with pentagrams, obviously in the modern era in the 20th century, and probably a bit in the Victorian era as well, we think of pentagrams as associated specifically with witchcraft, but actually it used to be the 5 wounds of Christ, and like it was also a symbol when people were talking about the myths of King.
Uh-oh. He mentioned the DW.
He did, didn't he?
I tell you, that word is cursed. It is tonight.
But that was intriguing, though, wasn't it? It was interesting. Yeah. He's had to go. It's not going to work tonight, I don't think, is it?
It's absolutely amazing. I've put up the link, everybody, if you want to have a look at Brian's website. There it is there. It's got the shop on there as well where you can get the book. It's absolutely fascinating.
It will blow
honestly.
your socks off. It really will. It's a really interesting book. And he's a very, very well-educated chap, as you can see.
I mean,
he knows his business.
Brian's been studying and researching for over 20 years?
Yeah, long time.
Not longer than that.
Long time he's been doing it.
Yeah, it's his forte, really.
It is. It's a shame. I wanted to get to ask him about if he'd, hopefully he might be able to still, but if there was anything that he'd discovered regarding sort of graffiti, ancient graffiti.
Oh, yes.
Does
he have any insights?
Examples. Yeah, exactly.
I like ancient graffiti. It's quite interesting.
It is. There's a church here in Hertfordshire somewhere, and it's got something at the bottom which goes back to medieval times. And what it says is in Latin, because of me speaking Latin and that. And the guy decoded it and he said, it says, Mary is a slag.
Really? No. In Latin?
In Latin. Mary is a slag.
What would they have called them slags, though? They would have called them...
Well, they must have. Words must have been around a lot longer than we thought. Oh, I pissed myself.
That is funny. Eric says... My cat is sitting on my lap and trying to grab my neck. Wants kisses and cuddles off Daddy.
Oh, you Annette.
She's laughing about Mary's slag. Do you know,
had I been around the medieval period, that sort of thing, I would have stuck on.
Do you know, it's quite interesting. In Redmount in King's Lynn, I'm going to have to take you there, Dan. There's some graffiti there that some prisoners were kept there for something, right? I don't know. But they drew some graffiti, and it goes back to 15 something or other. It's really old graffiti. You know what they drew? Castle Rising. No,
you told me about that, yes.
Yeah, about the soldiers at Castle Rising.
I'd like to see that.
It's really strange.
But yeah, it was a shame. We were getting to the swing of it there, weren't we? And it was just, unfortunately... Somebody mentioned DW. You
mentioned the DW. You've jinxed it. I told you. It's supposed to be a sign of protection.
It was him, not me. I went no, DW.
Oh dear. But no, this.
I'll have to look at that Rosslyn Chapel then.
Yeah. Font of knowledge.
He really is. He's a very interesting man.
We'll have to get him back on as well.
Definitely.
But we'll see if we can get him on. If not, then we will get him back on another.
He's
back again. We're gonna get him in.
Oh,
you mentioned the word, Brian. You mentioned it and jinxed it.
It's no good for the stress levels. This I can tell you.
I can imagine.
You watch the seconds ticking away as your computer restarts.
Don't let that put you off coming back on with us in the future either. You can't hold it against us, Brian, because we'll come and find you.
No, I don't blame you. I think there's some kind of technological issue which I'm not yet aware of. But I've tried.
I'm probably a jinx.
A jinx. So you wanted to ask Brian a question, Dan, about graffiti.
Quick question I want to ask you, Brian. Graffiti. Have you come across any sort of early graffiti written in, either Latin or what have you? And has it been transcribed into modern day English? Is there anything that you've seen on buildings at all that's...
There is an awful lot of medieval Latin. I say an awful lot. There are several examples of it. But I tend not to transcribe it because it's not really my area. Do you know what I mean? But there are lots of bits of it. I mean, quite recently I was in Selby in Yorkshire, in Selby Abbey, and there's quite a lot of Latin on some of the columns there.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen it in a lot of big cathedrals and abbeys have some of this in there. But yeah, as I'm not an aficionado of Latin, I would have to sit there. I'd have to transcribe it in ink and then get my little Latin dictionary out and try and
go
work
through
my
that all. Yeah.
Generally speaking, we've got people putting little statements of interest to them. Like usually it'll be something like brother such and such was here on this date or something like that, or such and such gave this abbey as a gift to such and such.
Wow.
that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it crops up quite a bit. But there are more interesting things out there. I mean, I know that the medieval graffiti group down in the southeast in Norfolk, I know that they would have transcribed an awful lot of that kind of thing because they have a much greater interest in the more general kinds of graffiti as well. So yeah, so there's a lot of it out there.
Excellent. What about Old English? Anything? Sorry.
I was going to ask Brian. Somebody asked in the chat a bit earlier. I can't remember the actual thing. They were talking about crypts in churches. Mm-hmm. Has there been anything odd, not like macabre odd, not to do with death, but anything sort of strange odd found in crypts since you've been researching this? Like, like with the horse's head or the mummified cats, or seen something that really shouldn't have been down in a crypt, something weird.
Well, I can't think of anything particularly off the top of my head, but I do remember, I'm sure it was a crypt in Northamptonshire somewhere, where there was some essentially broken bottles that were included in a crypt, which could have been, I think the rector or vicar that sent me that information was sort of speculating that maybe they'd been used for some sort of magical purpose. You couldn't say they were witch bottles for sure, obviously, because it was just bits of broken bottles. But yeah, he certainly thought it was unusual. I remember that. And I'm fairly sure I've got a report of a concealed shoe or two from sort of crypt sort of areas in the past as well. But generally speaking, the crypts you see are generally or often fairly inaccessible, so they're not as easy for people to pop into and place marks and everything as other places. But yeah, sorry, I can't furnish you with lots of exciting information.
No, that's all right. Doesn't matter.
But do you think that they would need to put like protection marks and things in somewhere like a church or in a crypt necessarily? Because it's on sacred ground anyway, isn't it? So I find it odd.
Yeah. Well, one of the best places to look for marks is your local church, to be honest with you. They are incredibly full of these marks, and so much so, some churches are devoid of them. There's nothing, right? But others, masses. And it seems like, you get certain individuals in certain areas, but over long periods of time, like generations of it in some cases, that are putting these marks in these churches. I mean, you look at some of the alabaster tombs, like in Wells Cathedral, for example, in Somerset.
Yeah. Literally
covered in graffiti. Like literally, I mean, obviously it's very soft stone alabaster, so you can do it just with a sharp knife, But, they are literally covered, so much so that you think there's no way that the clergy were not aware of this occurring, There's just no way. And in a lot of cases, you think, well, there would have been lay priests, sort of semi-civilians, if you like, that working on the properties.
Oh.
Oh, wow. We've lost him again.
We lost him again, unfortunately. I find that intriguing, though, the fact that it's considered to be, at the time, a Christian or a religious sacred building, yet they're quite happy to what we would consider defacing it.
Yeah.
You would have thought people at that period would have been so sceptical of bad luck and what have you, or something happening to them, they wouldn't do that. But they should be a lot more, do you know what? Let's just do it. Very interesting, though.
Brian's going to try and come back on again.
Hiya, Kelly. Sorry, I've just noticed Kelly's come in. Oh, there's Brian.
Oh, he's back, is he? Get him in now, Dan.
Can I do that? Yeah.
I'll do it.
Oh, done it. Hello, Brian. You're all right. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that was a different fault this time, wasn't it?
It wasn't. No DWs mentioned whatsoever.
All flickery and rainbowy like last time. This time, just seized.
We were just saying how we find it quite strange how people would go into somewhere like that and deface it, knowing that it was a place of God or a place of worship, and that they've got no fear of repercussions, really.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, when you look at the way people thought in the past, which I think I know a bit about it, and essentially people just saw sources of supernatural power, right? They didn't. It wasn't necessarily good, bad, God, devil, like this. Everything was merged together, and a lot of people, especially pre-Reformation, they didn't even understand what was written in the Bible. Didn't understand what was spoken by the priests. But it was like a kind of magical ritual with a god that they knew about that. And these buildings were held sacred power. And if you could channel some of that into your life somehow, whether that be by carving your shoe outline inside it and hoping that some of the energy would transfer sympathetically through your unique shoe outline, or if you could take a little bit of holy water in a little reliquary away with you, and use that or drink it or feed it to someone who was ill, or if you could scratch some of the stone away, and you use it in a potion, which is what we think the so-called arrow sharpening marks are. Things like that. So the relationship between sort of these religious buildings was very different to how we might think of it now. Now there's a clear division, and you wouldn't think of the clergy as having anything to do with that kind of thing. But really, people would have the clergy in their house in the past to cast out evil, but then they would also go and bring a cunning person into the house to cast out evil.
Yeah.
It was whatever worked is what they would do. And so it was a lot. The lines were much blurrier, put it that way.
I remember going to the Witchcraft Museum at Boscastle and talking to the guy there, and he was saying, which completely threw me really, but he was saying there that there was a lot of witches or people that were considered witches or cunning men and cunning women, and yet they were very religious as well. They were Christians, but they still practiced because they felt that it was a folk art or it was folk magic, and that was okay to do that because it was natural and it was produced by God and what have you, and that's how they kind of equated it.
Very much so. I mean, I was recently reading a book about Simon Foreman, who was a magical, he was basically a cunning man operating in the I'm just trying to think of the exact era, but in the late 16th century. And he would sell his services, and he was later accused of heresy and everything. But he was very much a believer in God, but also was selling and making magical rings for people to wear and doing astrology for people to predict what they were doing from one day to the next. But he was saying that by the grace of God he had the power to do this, and and so it's interesting. And also you look back to even Celtic Christianity, so the earliest kind of Christianity that reached our shores, and they very much believed in magic. It was a very different kind of Christianity to the Christianity we think of when you think of the Bible now. And it's basically just the way people are considering all these like supernatural forms of power. It really is that. And further to that, the written charms people used to produce, the cunning women used to make, will include astrological symbols, magical sigils from grimoires, also bits of Latin, and also lots and lots of references to Jesus. Please help us protect this person. But along with abracadabra in the corner and
It's like Queen Elizabeth I, wasn't it, with John Dee? That was a similar thing, wasn't it? At the time that they
very much so.
She used him, didn't she, as an astrologer and what have you?
Yeah, well, Simon Foreman was a contemporary of John Dee, and if you look up the name Simon Foreman, he's a really interesting character. He was accused of lots of nefarious deeds, but actually he was just a kind of a more came up from more of a working class kind of background, so probably was frowned upon a bit more than some of the slightly better educated and wealthier folks there at the same time. But it's just a really interesting era to look at.
It definitely is. It definitely sounds it.
Can we talk about the horses' heads now? The horses' skulls, because
I'm on a bit of a I was intrigued by it last time we spoke to you. And I went on a bit of a rant looking for things, bit of a search, and I found some different bits, and they seem to be prevalent. Mate, a lot of them seem to be really prevalent in Ireland. And a couple of people that I found online said that this guy was talking about his house was his dad had put a horse's, or his grandfather had built the house, and he put a horse's skull in the middle or something. And the reason for it was because they used to have cages around there with musicians, and the size of the skull created it kind of enforced the resonance of the. But then there were other people that said, well, we don't think it was for that at all. No. Or it could have been for maybe several reasons. Yeah, acoustics, yeah.
Yeah, well, when you start reading the literature on like horse skulls being found in buildings, you get two main theories coming out. One is that they were put there as a foundation sacrifice, and the other is that they were put there to assist the acoustics. So, like for example, in the Portway Inn in Herefordshire, this is one of the ones that Ralph Merrifield writes about in his book. Over 30 horse skulls were found screwed to the underside of the floor of the pub there. Okay, and they've still got one there, which they'll show you if you go and ask. If you ask them, they'll show it to you. Don't know what happened to all the others. And then in Ireland, in 1945, a guy did a big study there, and they found that a lot of these peasant cottages had a horse skull just concealed under a stone in front of the fireplace. And a lot of them would say it was there to make the dancing sound better in the evening. And the one in Herefordshire that I just told you about, the answer given there was that it made the fiddle sound better. So when they were doing dances and stuff. But actually, when you look at it, I mean, I've got a horse skull in this room up there. Okay, it's right up. You can't quite see it. It's just out of shot. And it doesn't improve the acoustics in here, right? Okay, and I'm a music teacher. I teach guitar as well, right? And
oh, you'd know that.
It doesn't make it sound better, but maybe I haven't attached it to my floor joists in the correct way. Maybe I haven't screwed it to the floor joists.
Or do you think that's a ruse to keep the priest off their back? Or we'll tell him it's for acoustics when it's really for something else.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I think. And basically, if you're walking down the street with a couple of horse skulls under your arms, and you see the priest on the other side of the street, what are you doing with those? Acoustic treatment of my property, Governor. It's a much better explanation than, I think it will keep evil away better than you and your church.
Yeah.
And I think that the same excuse has been offered so many times that people now think it's the real reason.
Yeah,
essentially. Yeah, and there are people who literally have been brought up hearing that that's the reason because that was the excuse given, and then think that really is why you do it. But there is fairly recent folklore which proves that it was to keep evil away, and also proves that it's not exactly foundation sacrifice, but it's kind of related. There was Enid Porter wrote Folklore of Cambridgeshire, which is a really impressive volume. And in it, there's an example from 1897 where some workmen were cutting the foundations for a new chapel that was being built in Norfolk. And they sent the builders, the little lad, off to the knacker's yard with his little brother to go and get a horse's head. And they brought the horse's head back, laid it in the base of the foundations. They had a bottle of beer. They poured some of it over the horse's head, and then they shared the bottle of beer, and then they started shoveling dirt over the top of it. Now, this isn't exactly the same as having a horse skull screwed to the underside of your floorboards, I know that. But when they were asked what was the reason for it, they said it was sure to keep evil wizards and witches away, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and this was 1897. This is Industrial Revolution is well underway. Yeah. And they clearly thought it was to keep evil away. And there are virtually every Victorian era and later chapel in Wales, for example, will have a horse skull underneath it, or some large animal bone. And these are people that are ostensibly Christians, but they're still carrying on this tradition of doing it. They believe it's the right thing to do in terms of keeping evil away. And I think part of it is because when you look at a horse's head with its flesh removed, a skull, it doesn't look like a horse anymore. It looks like some kind of quite incredible, powerful being, like a supernatural creature of some kind. And I think people thought it was scarier than some of the things that might come into your house, and it could scare them away. But then also, you've got these beliefs about horses going way back, like ancient myths about horses. They literally can, they are what pulls the sun up, you know, and they can take the dead from one side to the other. They, and then they also have these properties as living horses, which is that they are super vigilant and they can stay awake, or they can appear to be awake, but actually they're asleep, you know. And they're also hypersensitive, aren't they? I mean, we've all heard that they can reported to sense earthquakes long before they actually happen, etc. You know, they've got this a bit like cats. They've got this kind of super sense going on, as well as having some supernatural qualities. But obviously, in death, the horse skull also looks quite kind of formidable and terrifying. And I saw someone just mention about the Vikings as well, and obviously the Vikings did do horse burials, and they had lots of strong beliefs about horses as well. And yeah, that is part of the folklore and beliefs around horses. It relates to how the Vikings regarded them as well, for sure.
And Robert says music is a route to the soul as well. So the acoustic side of things, and
yeah. I mean, all I would say is, you know, we need one day to do a nice big test with a load of horse skulls. I don't want to kill any horses though, so it's a bit tricky for me.
Dan, you can get loads of them. You can get them, can't you? How many do you want, Brian?
How can you get them so easily?
I used to be. Well, I was a zookeeper, and so I've still got friends at the zoo. And the horses that passed away naturally would go into the feed machine for the big cats. But we cut the horses' heads off, and then so we used to strip them and stuff. So I'm sorry if anybody's a horse lover out there, but that's what we used to do.
How many do you need, Brian? We'll put it on order.
Well, I'll take 10.
All right, I'll get hold of them for you. Leave it with me.
So long as we can sit in the class with you and just listen to the music. And
what I would say is, please just promise me that no horses come to any harm.
No. They're already dead before we get them. They hit the floor before we even get them.
Yeah, see, the one I've got was from an antique store, so it's a really old skull. It's got a nice kind of H patina to it and everything. It's not recovered from a concealed context or anything, but it's just a nice example of it's a male horse. It's got the little canines and everything.
Lovely.
But but yeah, it's nice. But yeah, the thing is, the acoustic theory, you know, it crops up quite a lot. It also comes from Sweden. There's this idea that some of the horse skulls found beneath those old threshing barns were there to make the sound of the flails sound bigger, so that the neighbouring farmers would think you were threshing more wheat and you were a more successful farmer than you were. But you know, who knows? I mean, I think that there certainly is a very established tradition of horses being seen as kind of slightly otherworldly and having these mythological connections. There's also the way they look when they haven't got any flesh on them. Yeah. There's also the Irish examples, although they said it made the dancing sound better. Kel Surprise, they're right in front of the fireplace, which is exactly where you put a witch bottle. Yeah. You know, the fireplace is always open to the sky, and that's where your baddies come in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that there's a lot of sort of evidence to suggest that the acoustic theory was something that's come along a bit later to try and explain it rather than... Yeah, but you know, who knows? It could be. I all I'm saying is I haven't heard the resonance that is alleged to come from a horse skull, and I am a musician, so I think I should have caught some of that by now.
It would make an interesting music lesson, wouldn't it? Having children with instruments and all these horse skulls.
Yeah, I mean, you can make instruments out of skulls, right? Because they do have a bit of resonance, because they are little hollow chambers.
Hollow, empty, yeah.
Yeah, but my problem is, you know, why would you? I mean, obviously, horse skulls were fairly widely available when that was the main mode of transport. But also, I just think that, you know, a block of wood probably creates a better resonance than a horse skull. You know, I know in Bury St Edmunds in Moyses Hall Museum, they have got, I think it's a fiddle made with the skull of a cow or a skull of a deer or something like that, and it's there on display. You know. But but you know, I think if they were that great, you know, wouldn't all guitars be made with a cow's skull instead of a body?
Got that shape. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, horse
So
skulls. That's my logo.
Bryce said
It is, yes.
it wasn't always horses; they used oxen
It was
too.
originally oxen, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Well, horse skulls are, they go back to the 14th century again. So, we have got a lot of that. We don't find ox skulls very often at all, but in America, they definitely do use them on like fences and stuff like that. And part of it is like, wow, because they just look impressive, but also there is a belief amongst some farmers that they do help keep evil away as well. And
I wonder if we brought that over there than the Europeans.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think skulls of all kinds have kind of a magical significance for people. But there's the strand I've investigated is the horse skull one, but we don't get many examples of ox skulls. We do get a lot of horn cores, like the cores from inside horns. Sometimes
Yeah.
masses of those, and sometimes you get sort of confusing when you start looking at the evidence of like bones in buildings. There was there was a period where people were trying to use bones from abattoirs and stuff in building materials and stuff.
Right.
There are some buildings made out of them, and some floors are like cobbled with animal knuckles and things like that.
I know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's a guy who wrote a really good paper called "The Use of Animal Bones as Building Material." I think he's called Philip Armitage, and he found all these examples of like little cobbled areas made of bones, and there's even a bus shelter somewhere made of sheep bones and things like that.
Wow.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Should be preserved.
Be interesting. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, also like a bit gooey and a bit whiffy.
Yeah, very macabre.
Yeah. I know my horse, even though my horse skull is an antique one, but it definitely had a bit of an aroma about it when I first got it. It's only through being indoors and on top of a shelf for so long that it's kind of still
dissipated.
Still a vague whiff about it if you get your nose.
So Brian, I heard I met someone that had a human bone that was made into a whistle, and it's supposed to have this magical thing to it. And I thought, oh no, it's just a load of rubbish. He just wanted a human bone, and that's what he did. So I went to the market, and I found a Peruvian market stall in England, in Cambridgeshire, that was selling bone whistles, but made from bovine bone, so it's cow. And I thought, oh, this will be an interesting thing. I'll buy it, because it's interesting. And I went to play it to show Dan, and talking about whiffy, the smell. Because people would forget that it's had marrow in the middle and it's been hollowed out, and it really did smell badly. So I covered it with oil, put it on the shelf, and that's where it stayed. It doesn't get played. It's just now just a piece of furniture for someone to look at, But I find that people don't realise the intricate stuff that happened, that they did to get these bones and these skulls to use them. There must have been more to it than just, oh, I get that, put it in a house. Because the house must have stunk if you don't clean it or do something with it. I know you're burying it.
It's all pretty gross and gooey, isn't it? Let's be honest. But yeah, there is I'm sure there's some archaeology about the witch's whistle. This idea that you make a flute or a whistle out of the bones of a dead human, and that it's reputed to be a witch's whistle. I've not come across one recovered from a building, but I'm sure I've seen that there is one in a museum somewhere. You can imagine, necromancy or summoning the dead or something being part of it or something. But yeah, people have got vivid imaginations, and you talk to any kind of teenager who feels that they've got some kind of supernatural power, and has access to some bone, and they'll make some charms or some kind of magical something out of it. Pretty sure I did something similar with chicken bones or something.
Oh no.
Oh dear.
Oh well. Lost him.
Well, it's time anyway, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, bless him. Oh, but it's how interesting is this, guys? Honestly,
So interesting. You're right, Eric. There is something called a death whistle.
Go and get his book. Seriously, I
You must
can't
get it.
say enough. Honestly, it to me, it's just my reference book. If I want to know something, Dan will go off on something and say, "Oh, you know this and that." I'll go, yeah. What was he talking about? I'll look in my book.
But it's a great book, and the guy's he's a lovely man, as you've seen. Really lovely chap, and he's such a joy to speak to, isn't he? Because you can just listen to him for hours. Literally,
yes.
He's amazing to listen to. But yeah, we'll definitely get him back on again.
He's a font of knowledge, and
He really
as
is.
you said
He
as well,
really
he's a musician as well. You heard him say that he plays I think he plays the guitar. Does he?
He's a clever man, very clever
Yeah.
man, very intelligent man, and yeah, a nice man, very nice fella.
Yeah. So, in the chat, Eric says almost all.
I was about the skulls and stuff.
And weird stuff.
Weird stuff. Where the world is weird, Eric. The world is weird, mate.
Robert made me laugh. They're needing to use it to fill the bloody pot.
I'll make you need it round here as well, mate, for that.
That's true. You have a skeleton of a buzzard somewhere near here on a guy's
I bet
fence.
that's cool.
Really? Wow.
Oh, I bet that is so cool.
You couldn't have that over here because people would just nick it, wouldn't they? And sell it on eBay.
Yeah, they would. Or they'd stick a bloody moustache on it or something stupid, wouldn't they?
Oh, dear. Oh, but it was absolutely brilliant speaking to Brian. But seriously, guys, have a look at the website. It's got some stuff on the website there. I've got it up here. He's got he talks at a lot of conferences, and if he's at a conference, I'm sure he'll put it up there. And
he's well sought after, isn't he?
Yeah, pop along and go and listen to some of his talks because his talks are amazing.
Well, you found him and you introduced me to him, didn't you? Because you said, "Oh, you got to listen to this guy on this radio program, or whatever it was." One of the here it is. And I listened, and it was like, wow, this is superb.
We're just talking about you, Brian, about your lectures. And
no wonder my ears were burning.
But you lecture all over the place. You go all over and lecture. And
I do.
Really?
We're guiding people to the website to see where you're going to be giving lectures, and we've been telling them pop along and go and see you.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, I do do a lot of them, but I like it because you get to meet a lot of people, and they all have their own stories, and sometimes people bring objects as well. Thankfully, nothing too gross. It's not like an Ozzy Osbourne concert, but bring things along, and it's good. It's nice. It's a nice way to meet people and explain more about the subject, and also you get every time you do a lecture or something like this. Where you do a podcast and meet people always ask you interesting questions as well, and then it always helps you think the subject through,
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for coming on tonight, Brian. It's really appreciated.
Do you know what, Dan? When he sees me and you come into one of his lectures, he'll be eyed him. He's like, look at them, they've got a big box in their hands. Unless that's full of skulls, I don't want to speak to them.
Well, you're not drinking
like most
coffee.
people do.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have to get you back on, Brian, at some point, if that's all right with you.
I swear I've never had a more cursed experience in terms of technology than this one. So I don't know what's going on tonight.
It's the DW curse. It's not working. It's not protecting. It's gone the other way around because Dan's
because I've instigated it. I think I've put the energy into it.
It's definitely not your fault. I'm pretty sure it's just an old computer that for some reason has chosen today to announce its demise.
That's what is great. What we've got, we're more than happy with what we got tonight. It was wonderful.
Oh, it always
Brian, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me, for sure.
It's been an education, as it always.
We'll get you on after the summer to see where you've been, what you've been doing, and who you've been speaking to. And
all right.
We'll talk. Is there any more books coming at all, or are you
there will be. It's all a bit hush hush at the moment, but I mean,
okay.
No problem.
Certainly, there's a new collection of essays from the Hidden Charms 3 conference that happened in Chester in 2021, and that's coming out very soon.
Interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
I'll grab a copy of that when that's out.
We'll keep an eye on the website, everyone, and I'm sure you'll see it there first. And if you have any questions for Brian, could they message you through the website? They can message you.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy to talk. Yeah, no problem.
Excellent.
There
Well,
you go.
we're going to let you go and get a drink of something and calm down, Brian.
Fix my computer, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll do.
Get a new one, throw it out the window.
That's what needs to happen, I think.
Thanks
you
again.
ever so
Thank
much.
you, Brian. Thank you ever so much.
No, thank you.
It's been wonderful.
great.
Thank you.
And take care, everyone in the chat. Thank you for tuning in your questions. And
See you all later.
We'll get Brian back again, I promise. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.